growth. So if you're new, welcome, and we hope that you'll find this session valuable. So, as I mentioned, our first demo will be introducing the parameter updater. And this is the highlight of our latest release. And Pavel, our product manager, will tell you all about it. So, Pavel, handing it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Enda. Let me share my screen. And yeah, so parameter updater is, as the name suggests, is a feature to update parameters, specifically the Revit parameters from Excel. And to install the parameter updater is easy. You don't need to do anything different. Just update the connectors to the latest Revit and Excel connector, and you are good to go. Also, speaking of installations and trying and testing, we are currently working on a release candidate which will go out soon, in a week or so. And anyone who is interested in helping us with the release candidate testing can join us. They'll just follow the news on the community forum, and you will learn more there. But so let's have a look on the parameter updater, which we at Speckle, we try to improve workflows, bridge various gaps between the CAD and BIM world, between the different professions. And in this demo, we have three personas. There's an architect who works on this architectural model of a residential development in Revit. And then we will have there's a fire consultant and cost planner. So I already, and then we have a project already uploaded in Speckle. And for the communication, we're going to send the tabular data, the schedules between Revit, Speckle, and the connectors. And for that, you can create a couple of branches. It depends it's up to you how you want to structure your project. For our demo, I created a branch for fire rating and a branch and sub-branch for cost planning. So I already did the first iteration with the fire engineer or the fire consultant, and we collaborating on a schedule. So previously, I created a wall schedule where I'm listing all the exterior walls with their areas, and with that, I sent that schedule to via Speckle to a fire engineer who sent me back the schedule with updated fire rating. Now I still need to get the costing from the cost planner. So let's have a look on that. To do that, I will send this schedule first to a specific branch in Speckle. It's up to you. You could, in theory, you could use only one branch, but I think it's good to keep things separated for auditing and just to keep stuff more organized. And there is when you update to the latest connector, you can notice in Revit that there is a new option called schedule. And that's exactly what I want to send. I don't want to send the whole model. I just want to send this schedule because this is all we need to work on with the cost planner. So I can just select the schedule. In description, I can write that it's schedule of walls, and I can send it to Speckle. Then on the receiving side, and yeah, so that was successfully sent. I can open a Excel spreadsheet and launch the connector. Here, all I need to do is to locate my project and find the relevant branch or model and receive back. You might have noticed the receive button changed to receive schedule. This is the clever bit which we developed in the Excel connector. It's clever to recognize that what I'm receiving is schedule. So we're skipping the filtering step as you would do other models or with other data types. Receiving schedules is really easy. So you can you have it nicely in Excel. Fields which are white or light blue are editable fields. These dark gray fields are not editable because these are the areas which you can't change. Those are the properties of the geometry. So What I want to do here now, I want to update the price. So let's say, let's give this a price of 300. And what is cool, you can input values, but you can also input formula. So here, and maybe I can do it like this. Just I can write a description that this is price per square meter is 300. And with that, I can then send the schedule back. I will switch to send mode, and I will choose the cost branch, and I will name it as walls priced, right? And I'll send it back. And the advantage here is that as a cost planner, I don't have a license to Revit, or I don't have the application even installed. So in this way, I can easily manipulate the data or update the data which is in the BIM model, send it back to the architects, who then on the receiving side can receive this data to the Revit schedule and the BIM model. And all I need to do on the architect side is really just go to the send tab, receive or select the relevant branch, hit the receive button, and the table is then updated and populated with the latest data. So this is the way how you can, with Speckle, how you can work across multidisciplinary teams. And yeah, this is another addition to our overall toolbox of connectors and other applications. That's it. And this is this is parameter updater. Update to the latest Revit Excel connectors, and you can give it a go.
Thanks, Pavel. We do have some questions. So I see also someone raised their hand. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please. I think it was Ryan.
Yeah, it was accidental.
Oh, all right. And then I see, Dick, you had a question. If you want to maybe, do you want me to read it, or do you want to go for it? Maybe you should go for it.
No, so right now it's mainly focused on schedules, so it's a table-to-table conversion from the stream, which is, I think, a great addition for the Revit workflow in SEC itself. But it is only limited to Revit. So is there any ambition to expand this functionality to allow it directly on the stream itself where you post your model to? Or what is the roadmap?
That's definitely possible. We started with Revit because this is one of the common use cases and pains to manipulate data between these two applications. And for this, yes, we introduced a new data type into the Speckle object schema. And yes, it is possible to do the same with other applications. What would be your wish? Which application should we have a look at, or what is the use case? Tell me more.
So mainly it would just be for me to be able to modify parameter data on the stream itself rather than being application bound. Because that's really what Speckle is about, to have a central data model where you send and receive information to and from. And so if you make custom connection to applications themselves, you're then also limited to maintaining those connectors for that specific type of applications there. And you're not able to guarantee that the functionalities will stay the same in the development roadmap. For Civil 3D, we know that they are changing some things in the base classes in 2024 and on to support more for the platform. So to be able to do it directly on the stream, and so modify object properties on the stream and maintaining that object property to see it as a delta commit, so to say, would be a more sustainable approach for the Speckle solution, I would say.
Yeah, thanks. That's good feedback. We'll give it a thought. In theory, I don't know, Speckle team, Speckle engineers, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could also, with the Speckle Pi and with access to the API, you could also do this in probably a little bit more hacky way, but we can give this a thought and to make this maybe more user-friendly to give you the ability to manipulate your data in Speckle. Yeah, thanks for that. That's good feedback.
Great. We have another question from Rob. Nice functionality. Thank you, Rob. Does it actually send the wall objects to the Speckle server, or does it only send the schedule as tabular data?
It sends the tabular data, but what it sends also the geometry in the background. So what we want to do is next, to show you also the model, like just the reference geometry of the schedule. But it's then up to you how you want to manage your model and what chunks of the model you want to send. But this is focused on the tabular data.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Because I think for us it would also be interesting that you can just select a schedule and just send the objects within that schedule as you would normally send. That's a
So
different thing, but
I understand. So you would want to filter by schedule, something along these lines, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's already possible. Instead of schedules, it's under views option. So schedules, as you know, in Revit, they are also a view, but instead of 3D, they are just tabular views. So if you go to views and search for your schedule, you can see your elements listed there and send only elements from that schedule into Speckle. And they're going to be just, 3D objects.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I needed. So if it's already in, that's great. So thanks for that. And I think I spoke to a colleague some time ago, and he was also interested in basically this. So being able to extract parameters and edit them, but then parameters from Plan 3D. So I'm not sure if there's anything on the backlog to include a Plan 3D connector.
This has definitely been requested before a few times. It's in the backlog, so eventually we might get there. But even better if we receive that as a contribution from the community. It is, as far as I know, it is built on top of AutoCAD, so it might be relatively easy to do so. So just starting on top of the AutoCAD code that we have might be relatively simple.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. We have time for 2 more questions. So I see there's Andres and Yerun. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Sorry if I'm not. Andres is asking if we would do the same with Google Sheets.
That's not currently planned, but we can consider it. Yeah, that's good feedback. We can get to it at some point later. Well, our current focus is to improve all the connectors we currently have. We are slightly, we want to give a good thought to which connector or which application to support next. But yeah, this is a reasonable request. Thanks for that. We will backlog that.
Great. Jeroen, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, I wanted to reply to Rob's comment. Interesting to hear. So I agree with Dickles that interesting comment, because internally someone was actually explicitly requesting to send only certain parameters. So instead of sending the whole object, have BIM people give them the ability to only send specific parameters that they want to share, because they see like, the BIM model can contain so many parameters and data, and some data is already defined, and maybe you only want to share that that defined data instead of just sending the whole model. So interesting to see that Rob wants to send everything. So I thought,
in addition, Jeroen, this is also maybe more related to the ILS that in Holland's quite a hot topic at the moment. I'm not sure. IDS is, I think, the English term, the information delivery standard, where you can say, okay, then I have a stream that goes for work preparation, I have a stream for calculation, I have a stream for structurals. They all are mapped to the same objects, which is, I think, quite an interesting workflow to have.
Yeah, exactly. So it was not necessarily a question, more like a comment.
We love comments, and please feel free to drop them in the chat or ask them for our next demo, which is SketchUp Mapper. So Bilal, the floor is yours.
Okay, the guy with the cool mic is muted. Sorry. Can you hear me, guys? Yes, you can. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Senda,
Yes.
for the quick intro. And yeah, as you know, we recently introduced Mapper for Rhino. In its essence,
Wait, Bilal, I think we can't hear you anymore.
Check your cable.
Yeah, just move your mic like you usually do.
okay, I
You're
guess. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Says. Can you hear me? Okay, I guess Google Meet couldn't handle the quality of my mic. So yeah, as you know, we recently released the Mapper for Rhino, which in its essence, what we were trying to achieve in that was trying to bridge the gap between the CAD applications and the BIM applications. At Speckle, we are trying to enable workflows that are not usually possible, or we're trying to prevent the default choice of picking, either CAD or BIM. We're trying to make them work together. Yeah, so that effort concluded in the Mapper for Rhino, and now we're expanding that functionality into the SketchUp connector. So let me quickly talk about that. So in its current state, SketchUp connector, the Mapper functionality supports direct shape creation. You might ask, what are direct shapes? Direct shapes are essentially, primarily intended for quickly placing geometries without a need for, creating loadable families. They have some functionalities of a loadable family, such as they have the category information, they have maybe the material information, but it's not actually like quite suited for how do you say, quantity takeoff workflows maybe, or real modeling with some tagging, etc. Right? But they are still useful if you want to have like quickly see where your model is, have the context, maybe see the dimensions, quickly document them, etc. Yeah, in its current state, Mapper for SketchUp has the functionality to convert your SketchUp geometry into direct shapes with categories and materials. So let me quickly show you how that looks like in SketchUp. So this is a model that I downloaded from the SketchUp's huge library of 3D models. This is from 3D Warehouse, and I just organized it a bit. And each category now has its own layer. If we quickly go through them, you can see that it has the windows in Windows layer, walls are here, I have the doors, etc., floors, right? And let's say that you are interested in having this model inside Revit for documentation purposes or for whatever else, right? So you can start using Mapper by simply clicking on this blue brick, and you will have our Speckle connector. And with the latest 2.14 release, we added this new tab called Mapper. And how it works is pretty simple, actually. You have 3 accordion menus. The first one is the selection you make, so it is interactive, right? If you select a component, you see what you have selected. If you select a face, you see that you actually selected the face. Or if you select an edge, you see you selected an edge. If you make multiple selections with some faces, components, edges, we are working on adding some filtering options quickly from this selection dialog. The second one is where actually magic happens. So let's say that I want to convert this roads into a road category element in Revit, right? I can simply make a selection and this dialog gets activated. For now, I'm not really interested in these 2 cards. Let's stick with the first one, which is the mapper method. Currently, as I said, we only have the direct shape conversion, but in the future, we will have the functionality to create native Revit elements such as floors, ceilings, walls, roofs, columns, etc. The second dropdown is the category. So in this case, I'm interested in assigning the roads category. If you want, you can also give it a name. So I'll name it as cool roads, but this is totally optional, right? Once you click on apply, the third dialog, we have an update. We have one element mapped, right? And you can see that it's under the roads category. Let's say that I'm going to map this quickly as topography. I can do so. And now I have another item. So within this dialog, I can quickly filter what I have mapped, right? So I can quickly select these two and hide them so I can see what's left, or I can isolate them so I can see what I have mapped. If I'm going to make some selection, I can select them, or I can, clear mapping from the mapped elements using this button. All right, so this is the direct shape mapping, but what I have talked so far is the instance mapping. So we can store the mapping information in the elements themselves, the single entities, or in definitions. If you are a SketchUp user, I am pretty sure that you always work with components. And the feature that we have added, mapping by definition, makes things so easy. Right, so if let's say that you want to map this window as a window element, if you were to try to map this using the single entity method, right? Let's quickly do that. So I'm going to say this is going to become a window, right? And press apply. Once I do that, I have this check icon here, and that element is also added here. But if I select another instance of the same component, you can see that this is not actually mapped. So in this case, you have to manually select all the instances of the same component and then add the mapping information, right? But in the future, you can also add more instances of that component. So this is not actually future safe, right? So I am going to clear mapping from this element. So instead of mapping components by instances, we recommend you to map them by their definition. So in this case, I'm only going to select one instance of this window and say this is going to become a window category, and its name is automatically detected from the name of the component definition. Right? When I click on apply and select another instance of the same component, this one is also mapped. So this way, if I add more instances of the same component, I made sure that they will also get mapped as under the Windows category with their names, etc. We can quickly do the same for doors if we wanted to. So I can say these are going to become door. Their name is automatically detected, and they are here. All right, so this is the mapping process. I'm not going to map everything, so I will just open a file that I have already mapped. And sanding the mapped elements is as usual as any other sand from SketchUp. You simply go to Streams, create a new project. I already created one for this demo. So the mapper demo is here. You simply select what you want to send and click on Send. Speckle connector takes care of the conversions with their mapping information attached, uploads it to the Speckle server. And in the meantime, we can switch to Revit. I have created a new project. Let me quickly hide the levels. It is uploading it. And as you know, when you start giving live demos, your internet suddenly becomes slower, so it takes longer to send. Okay, it's already sent. Let's view it on the web. And here is my model from SketchUp inside our beautiful viewer. Right, so now if I switch to Revit and activate the Speckle connector from the Speckle tab and Revit connector, select the same project, and instead of sending this time, we're going to receive data from SketchUp. So let's click on Receive and Receive. Now our Revit connector will convert all the geometries from Speckle to Revit format. And look at that. Voila, right here. So I can select my walls, and they are under the walls category, right? I can select maybe a window, and they are under the windows category. And the same is true for the planting, right? And I can actually quickly hide my walls if I wanted to. And yeah, the beautiful thing about this is each item is individually created. So we are creating this object level link between the two applications. All right, everyone. So this is the current state of the mapper for SketchUp. So what's next? We are currently working on adding new mapping methods to the mapper for SketchUp. We will add converting faces to walls, floors, ceilings, and roofs. And also we are working on adding conversion of SketchUp edges into Revit columns, beams, and braces. This is the next phase, but we will obviously have more functionality on the mapper for SketchUp. All right, so let's continue with the questions then.
Thanks, Bilal. Would you, I mean, we have 3 in a row, so maybe it's easier if you unmute and ask them.
Yes. Sorry, I always have a lot of questions. So first is it possible to address the mapping to subcategories as well?
This is actually a great question. In theory, it is possible, but I've never created subcategories in Revit projects. Is it possible to create subcategories in the project environment, or are they usually created in family environment?
It's also, I think, possible to do so in the project environment, but I'm not sure. You should be able to do it through the API.
Okay, perfect. Then, I mean, we can definitely edit. Can you explain what the use case is?
So actually, the main categories of Revit don't say much when you work on more complex projects, because you're mainly focused on kind of disciplines without the roofs and the floors. They are roofs and floors, whether they are structural or architectural. So if you're working on the architectural part, you'll want to switch off maybe the cladding or the facade as a separate subcategory, and this is usually where you position those objects in. So within the category floors, you might have foundation, you might have finished floors, you might have some thermal insulation in between. So this is where the subcategories are meant for.
Would those be created by the user on Send, or do you guys usually have some sort of like an Excel table with the categories and subcategories? So instead of users manually creating them, maybe they can import the Excel file. Is that the case, or how does it work?
It depends a bit on how your organization is structured or your project is structured. Generally, I work with templates where they are predefined. So someone predefines them either in the template or in the family and loads them in, and then addresses certain properties. Or yes, they are in an Excel list because people are maybe coming from all over the place in and out of the project and have their own Revit projects that need to map to this subcategory.
Okay. Yeah, great to hear that. Maybe we can include, so we have another type of mapping that is available in Rhino, but not available currently in SketchUp, where we send the information from Revit and the context with types and levels, etc. In that, maybe we can also include sending subcategories. So users, instead of importing, manually creating those subcategories, they can already use the existing info from the Revit template. Great feedback, Tickles. Thank you.
It's just Dick, because the other part is the first part of my last name. So
okay, sorry.
No worries. Matteo, I think I did assign subcategories to direct shapes in the past, but let me check one of my scripts to confirm or not. Second question is the mapping saved to the stream as well? Because multiple users in the same projects have the same information. So if a user 1 sends it to the stream, does it allow the same mapping as user 2?
What do you mean by saving to the stream?
So generally, when you open your your stream interface, your connector, you see all the streams loaded in. Is the mapping table also loaded in when the streams are loaded or not?
So mapping is just another attribute of the objects themselves, and they are stored in the objects, right?
And not on the stream.
Yeah, they are not on the stream. They are stored in an object basis.
Okay, it may be interesting to have definition-bound mappings on the stream, because then you can do it across users with the same mapping. So the expected result in the models that I receive is always the same, and it's not different from one user to the other because he makes either a different selection or a typo or something.
So are you talking about an interface where you just send your SketchUp data into Speckle and then do the mapping in the Speckle interface, or something else?
Could also be possible, or you do it in the SketchUp interface, but it is saved to the stream on the stream itself as well. Or it's a setting you can transfer between within your project team, let's say.
Just storing the mappings as just another property or attribute in the project level, you're suggesting.
Exactly. Yeah. Because this is also concerning my third question, if it is bidirectional.
It is not. It's one direction only. So you're going from cat to BIM.
Okay, because it might be interesting to have it bidirectional, because then you always speak the same language to each other when you send and receive the information.
I mean,
for the compatibility within the software, I mean, right?
So what would be the benefit of having bidirectional mappings? Like, what would be the workflow there? Do you send your Revit model, receive it in SketchUp, and have the mapped info? Kind of like that?
So let's say I'm an architect in SketchUp. I'm making a model and I'm just putting some catalog windows, but I don't really define anything of the framing and the details of it. But some engineer in Revit does, right? In my SketchUp model, I want those elements that are windows to be mapped in the same way back to my SketchUp model that come from Revit.
So yeah, that we already have that functionality in Rhino, where you send the project information, which contains the families and types, the levels, right, some parameters, etc. So you'll be able to select a window in Rhino, whatever, or in SketchUp in the future, hopefully, and say this is going to become this window type, this family, this type, attached to this level in Revit. So that is called in the Rhino side, it is covered under the source mapped with source functionality, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, like you can select a surface in Rhino and say this is going to become a floor, but it's going to become the specific floor type attached to this level, and press apply. When you receive it in Revit, it becomes the defined floor type with the correct level attached.
And so when I edit that floor in Revit and send it back to Rhino?
We don't do bidirectional, as I said. So we're only creating this one-way link between the two applications. And our current focus, to be honest, is not covering the bidirectionality, perfecting the one direction first, and then we can cover the other direction, because it makes things complicated and we need to really think about the workflow there.
Yes, true. Okay, thanks.
Question from
very interesting, by the way, and happy to see that it happens as well, because we already have some clients in line to use this. So happy to see the development anyway.
Yeah, definitely send them our way, and we would like to hear their feedback as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dick. We do have one more question from David. If you're still here, do you wanna unmute and ask?
Sure. Hey everyone. Yeah, so I was just wondering about the parameters. It seems like there's some of the objects are all supported from within the Speckle.objects library. And I was wondering if there was ever going to be any support for, custom objects that are loaded and that are targeted for, whatever parameter update or parameter interface that you're building, like a kind of similar to how you have the attributes that you can plug in for schema instances within Grasshopper.
I guess this is a question either Matteo or Alan can answer.
So this is quite tricky, David. The reason is we had to hardcode some custom logic on how to handle these items, and we can't know in advance what the structure will be of custom kits. So I'm afraid it's not something we can enable anytime soon, but we are working on a new version of the UI, which might allow for extensions. So being able to customize the interface and functionality of the connectors. Now, this might be quite far down the line, but it would enable what you're asking for. Sorry for my internet is a bit slow today.
Ruined my day, Matteo. No, it makes a lot of sense. I was just curious because it's a really flexible thing, and I feel like a lot of times we have to build just Grasshopper scripts or custom things to do exactly what that is. So, but it makes sense. There's a lot of things to know in advance. So, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, David. Does anyone else have more questions? I'm also going to drop in the chat a blog to Mapper for Rhino, because we demoed the SketchUp part, but there's more, so it's there if you want to take a look. If there are no more questions, then we can move on with my favorite part. No, just kidding. This is the marketing update. We are, if you haven't seen this already, but we are launching an online conference called SpeckleCon. It's happening this year in November. And we're opening a call for proposals. So as you know, we love to hear from you, from our community. We want to promote the things that you're building. So if you have anything that you want to share as part of the conference, I'm going to drop a link to our forum, so you can send us any ideas that you have, or anything that you would like to share with us at the conference. Sorry, this is going to be like a bunch of links in the chat, but hopefully you'll figure out which one is which. And another update, I mean, not really an update, but this is for anyone who isn't part of the forum already. There's a QR code that should take you to our forum, where we have more conversations about the features that we launch. And if you have more questions that you didn't have a chance to ask today, you can do so there. I'll also share the link in the chat, just in case you don't have your phone next to you. But that is pretty much it. We finished sooner than planned, so I guess it leaves time for questions, or you get 50 minutes back. I'm gonna launch a very short, hopefully helpful poll to hear what you think about this stand-up, and we really want to make them as valuable as possible. So please reach out to us on the forum if you have feedback or want more updates from the team. We try to keep them focused so we can cover specific features and allow for more questions from you guys. All right, I guess that's it from us.
So I have a few questions as well, and a few more questions. So I've seen Autodesk developing more also data exchange connectors and these kind of things. How can I position this in regards to Speckle, aside from it be a vendor and you are not vendor?
The main, I mean, for us, that was quite of a good validation in a sense. It means we are doing something good, right? Something that not only our community needs. So it was good to see. Of course, we couldn't have noticing that they borrowed a lot of concepts from Speckle. That's okay. I think the main point to take home here is, where do you want your data to live, right? Do you want it to live within a proprietary, closed cloud, owned by a software vendor that already has a big monopoly, or do you want to have it living in a open and transparent infrastructure like Speckle? So this is entirely up to you to decide. I think we had a very interesting presentation at the Shape to Fab conference this year about what is your data strategy, right? So I think that's the question that maybe organizations should ask themselves is, where do we want our data to live in the future? We're relying more and more on data rather than on files. And where you put it today is going to matter a lot on what can happen in a few years from now. So that's our answer at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Also a very good answer, I think. No more questions from me.
Santiago,
Any other questions, ideas, remarks? Santiago.
Hi, thanks for the presentation, the demo. I'm fairly brand new to Speckle, and I posted recently a suggestion on developing a connector for Inventor, Autodesk Inventor. But I was wondering, for this, I don't know how difficult and how long it takes to develop a connector, but an idea occurred to me that for a presentation for SpeckleCon, which is about 5 months away, I wondered if a presentation would be trying out learning to develop a connector with Speckle's API or Speckle's code base, and then presenting the experience of like the pitfalls and the experience of developing a connector, and then sharing that at the conference, regardless of what the outcome was. Considering that it's open source, I think that the effort for developing a connector could be open source as well, like how the experience went. I wonder if that would be of interest.
And this kind of rings a bell to last year's SpeckleCon, where Jonathan, who is now our developer advocate, did just that with Navisworks. He just pulled off a Navisworks minimum connector that sent, and that has become the actual current Navisworks connector as of today. So yeah, we would welcome efforts like that for SpeckleCon for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have quite some out-of-date documentation on creating your own connectors. So any help in bringing them up to speed, up to date, or just contributing with lessons learned and showcasing your journey in doing that would be definitely great.
Yeah, thank you, Santiago. I posted the link to the forum. Please do submit your proposals when you have time. It sounds like a great idea. And anyone, I'm not sure if there are more questions or not, but if so,
David just asked if there are any updates to Git naming conventions.
I'm not taking this. I don't know who wants to take this question.
What was the question, sorry?
If there are any updates to Git naming conventions, I guess.
About decide on projects and models and models and versions or something.
Yeah, I guess we changed it in the new front end. So the streams have become projects, branches have become models, and the commits will become versions. You will have nested modeling in current UI. It's a bit limited, so we're gonna expand it with a fancy UI. Yes, change naming conventions.
Yeah.
I do like the Git naming conventions, but every time I do a presentation at the office about Speckle, everyone's like, "What's a branch?" So it is. I do like that naming conventions really resonates well. I think that's really a good push.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sander, we can always
be out for a while.
Can you both speak in harmony together? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, Sander warned me that I'm giving away too much, and I said we can always edit out. So edit the recording.
Cut it out. Cut it.
Alan?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying that you don't have to worry much about the change because we're not going to break anything for several versions, hopefully. So you have enough time to accommodate on your side.
Okay, so that's going to actually impact the backend, like all of the like naming styles for the models and stuff within Speckle Sharp and stuff like that. Cool, nice.
Yeah,
ready for it. Thank you.
Dick, another question. You're winning.
Yes.
We should give you a prize for the number of questions next.
I'm always the one who talks the most. It's sometimes if it's annoying, you need to say it. So I was wondering, currently when you commit, everything is sent to a stream, but the stream entirely is overwritten by just the thing you commit, right? So I'm just a little bit wondering if it's also possible to implement an to just commit a delta. I want to receive a part of a model. I'm going to just change the part of the model and I'm sending it back. That is going to append it to the stream instead of overwriting the stream as a whole. So let's say I have a house. I'm just going to receive the front facing wall of the house. I'm just going to cut it down with 2 meters. I'm going to send back the wall. I want to see the house as a whole back with the wall cut down from 2 meters. Is that something that's on the agenda, or is it something that is not considered at the moment?
So are you asking, instead of sending the whole model, can we send like deltas, only the changed parts? Is that the question?
Yeah, but that's what you're already doing. You're already doing diffing in the connectors. But I'm just wondering, when I just get part of a model, I'm sending part of a model back, that it's also able to update the entire model with the part that I'm changing, and not just overwriting the model with just the part that I'm sending.
Matteo, I don't have the answer. I mean, we are working on in the new front end, we will have something that might answer your question, I guess. The overlay, we are thinking of expanding the overlay functionality. So currently you can only overlay, commits versions, right? With the new front end, it's going to be more model based, and models are just branches with multiple versions in them. So you can have a separate model with only that part, right? And you can have some sort of like a federated model in Speckle with different models overlaid on top of each other. I said a lot of models, but I hope
overlay. I've worked with this overlay and based on Jonathan's post as well. But I think that's a bit different from what I'm meaning. So I'm excited to see what's going to be in the blog post. And yeah.
No pressure.
Maybe one thing to mention is how Speckle works is that we are not trying to create one central single source of truth, but we are constantly just pushing a new version of that. So always moving forward. So given how Speckle is currently designed, I think what you're asking for is a bit tricky to achieve, and maybe where what Bilal was mentioning is a better solution. So being able to federate a model much easier, that's what we're working towards. So having different models in the new front end where you can keep your architectural MEP model or stub parts, so you'll be able to nest them and structure them as much as you want, and then combine them together when needed. So that's a bit the direction we're going to.
Okay, great addition. Thanks.
Santiago, another question.
I have well, this is a naive question because I'm new to Speckle, but when it comes to comparing options, in something that I'm meaning to do for a client currently is in Revit, there isn't a really good mechanism for managing options. It's more managing visibility of differing elements inside of one single model. And in Rhino and Grasshopper, it's very easy to find your own way of developing different options and showing how to enable or disable them. But I remember back in the day, there was an interoperability solution online. I think it was called Flux, and they had, I believe they had some kind of an options mechanism in place. And I think even one from Thornton Tomasetti had some option mechanism in place as well. And I was wondering, because I'm new to Speckle, I didn't know if that's something that is a feature that can be done in the web client in the dashboard, or if it's or if there's a way in which the user can work around and enable it, or if that's a feature that is under development.
Could you explain a bit more what you mean by options? I definitely remember Flux. There's not many people remembering it nowadays. What kind of options are you looking to store?
For instance, if I had let's say 4 different Revit models, and I connected all 4 of them through Speckle to Power BI, then I would have a dashboard in Power BI where I'm showing apple-to-apple comparison of those 4 options of the same projects. Or it could be 4 different projects and I'm comparing the same indicators. I'll give an example of a medical clinic, and there's the travel distances for clinicians inside the clinic have been analyzed and calculated in Revit. And that indicator is, the result is baked into a parameter of a family of like the travel distance. There's a tool, there's a path of walk or something in Revit. Anyway, so I have 4 different projects and I want to know which one has the most efficient travel distances. But in order to visualize it, I wouldn't do it in Revit. I would prefer to do it in a more appropriate tool like Power BI. So in Power BI, I would show perhaps a visual representation of each project, and then I would show the same indicators for each project and maybe a graph that compares them all together. But for Revit, I don't have the ability in Revit to have all 4 projects inside of one same file. Or if I were comparing 4 options of the same projects, I don't really have a good way of having 4 unique buildings inside the same Revit projects and be able to go between one and another and compare them in Revit. So then if there aren't adequate option management features in Revit, is there a way to fill that gap through Speckle? Where with Speckle, you could perhaps link to multiple Revit models, or because this topic of option comparisons I come across it very frequently in work. There's always option A, B, C, and generally the comparison of the options is done merely on a visual basis where we're comparing renders or we're comparing plans, but we're not really comparing data. And it would be very, I think, it would be impactful to be able to compare options on the basis of data as well.
Cool, thanks for clarifying. So yes, that's definitely possible, and that's where currently we have the concept of branches. In the future, they are going to be renamed to models, but you can use them the way that you want. So these models, these branches could be design options. So what you're exactly referring to, and load them all in Power BI at the same time, in parallel or in series, however you want to analyze your data. But they could also be part of the same model. And the new front end will make it a bit easier on how you can structure these different models. So you'll have, as I was saying earlier, different levels of nesting available. Then it's up to you how you consume that data, right? But our goal is to make it more accessible. And so once it's in Speckle, yeah, you can slice and dice it and wrangle it however you want.
Okay, thank you.
All right. 1 minute left for final questions. No pressure. Otherwise, thank you all for joining, and hopefully you took value out of this session. We will see you soon. And au revoir.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.